Good afternoon and welcome to the Pediatric Epilepsy Surgery Alliance's Power Hour. Today, we're really thrilled to have Beth Sola with us for the topic, Talking with Your Kids About Sexuality, a workshop for parents and guardians. The Pediatric Epilepsy Surgery Alliance is the only nonprofit organization whose sole focus is serving the community of children anywhere on the epilepsy surgery journey, from the point of drug resistance through surgery, including the transition to adulthood and beyond. We empower families with research, support services, and impactful programs before, during, and after surgery. Formerly known as the Brain Recovery Project, we're in our 12th year of serving this community. Our Power Hour sessions are brought to you by our corporate sponsor, UCB, and we are grateful for their support. And as we switch screen sharing here, I'm going to introduce our guest today, our speaker, Beth Sola. So Beth has 25 years of extensive experience working with individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities as a bilingual special educator, working with individuals from infancy to adulthood and their families, and currently as a self-direction broker to create inclusive opportunities and support self-determined individuals to live their best lives. As the parent of a young adult on the autism spectrum, she also understands the importance of partnering with other parents to start the conversation about healthy relationships and sexuality education from an early age. Elizabeth is on the advisory board and leads parent workshops in collaboration with Elevatus Training. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Audrey, for the introduction.
Yes.
And I'd like to thank the Pediatric Epilepsy Surgery Alliance for having me here tonight. I'm here to present on the topic, talking with your kids about sexuality. And, I appreciate everyone's time as well. Before I start sharing my screen, and with my presentation, I just wanted to, when we talk about sexuality, we often focus on the first three letters of sexuality. We focus on sex, and the intimacy of sex. But really, sexuality is, it's much more than intercourse or sex. It's about connection. It's about belonging. It's about the relationships in our lives, where we live, where we work, where we play. It's about how we feel about being the gender that we are. It's about how we feel about ourselves and others. It's about our sexual expression and behavior. And really, it's a total of who we are, what we believe, what we feel, and how we respond. And we truly are sexual beings from the time we are born, from when our parents hold us, in their arms, and we start creating the bonds in our lives. So I'm going to start my I'm going to share the screen and start my PowerPoint presentation. Okay. We are. Okay. Talking with your kids about sexuality. The reason that it is so important to have these conversations with our children is because oftentimes there is no sexuality education in some schools. When there is sexuality education, it's often limited, or our children are pulled out of them. And sexuality education also helps combat unhealthy messages that we receive from our culture, from our social media, just from the day-to-day lives, the day-to-day around us. Sexuality education also helps normalize the topic. The more we talk about it in little pieces, the more comfortable we become with it, as well as our children. And it starts to make them, conversations that we do have more comfortable, with more confidence, and a safe place to be able to ask questions. Having sexuality education, talking with your children, it also shows that you are open to your children, that you're open with your children, and that your kids can trust you. They can come to you with questions or concerns that they have. And once again, there's that safe place and there's that communication, which is so important. It's also the opportunity for us as parents to express our values to our children. It also increases our children's sexual health, and it helps reduce sexual abuse. Certainly a very large concern for all of us, since our children and our loved ones, are so vulnerable. Okay, let's just see. What does sexual health mean? It means feeling good about and understanding our bodies. It means feeling good about who we are, having high self-esteem. It's feeling good about our gender identity and our sexual orientation. It's about having relationships that are positive and pleasurable, not exploitive. It's about having information to make healthy decisions, and it's about avoiding STIs, unintended pregnancies, and the other challenges that come along in our lives with the relationships that we do have. So the goal of tonight's presentation is to examine barriers that we have to talking about sexuality, understanding the messages that we have received, and it's also about gaining knowledge about sexuality, sexual abuse, developmental disabilities, and also to acquire and practice skills in communicating about sexuality with our children. So we always put up a slide just about group agreements, certainly to you always respect any differences of opinion, confidentiality, certainly, and there's no such thing as a silly question. All questions are good, and to have fun. So one of the first things I'd really like to just to bring up to think about, to reflect upon, is we don't have a breakout room, but just as just to think and to reflect upon is, what are the primary messages you received about sexuality while you were growing up? It's really important to reflect on those, because they really often impact how we feel about discussing it, with our children. Some of the things that have been shared in past presentations have been, by parents, by attendees, and messages that they have received are, sexuality is a natural and a normal part of life. Others have said that they grew up with the, with the feeling is that don't show affection. Other people, it's very nice to show affection. Don't talk about sexuality. Other families, certainly sexual feelings are normal and healthy. Don't touch yourself. Don't have sex until you're married. It's only okay to be heterosexual. Boys will be boys, right? It's okay to ask questions, or you didn't feel people didn't feel comfortable growing up that they were able to ask questions. So and then based on those messages that we've received growing up, just to think about, to reflect upon, what are the reasons that it can be difficult to talk about sexuality with our kids. Many of the responses that we have received over different presentations have been, it's difficult to talk about sexuality because of the messages that we received when growing up. Lack of role models, people talking to us about sexuality. It's embarrassing. We don't know when to start or where to start the conversation, what information to give, concerned about making a mistake, not having an answer, how much information to give. Am I giving too much information? Am I giving too little? What's age appropriate for my child? What information should I be giving my child, particularly, when for our loved ones who do have developmental disabilities? no one talked to us about it, so how do I talk to, to other people about it? And once again, if we don't know the answers, then it makes us often hesitant to have the conversation. Okay. Your role is, our role as parents is to provide information to our children in little bits. It doesn't have to be a long conversation, but to provide information in a way that they can understand according to their learning style. And often over and over again, I think most of us can agree that the learning curve of our children is such that they need, they need that repetition is very important in presenting information to them in many different ways. Talking about it, using stories, showing, there might be visual, images are better for their learning style, and to listen to our children, which is just as important as to talk to them, right? But to listen, and to listen to our children depending upon their communication style, right? We all know our children well as parents, and to read them, to listen to them, to model, right? How are we modeling our behavior so that our children are always observing that? Think about the messages that we do want to give our children, support our children, right? Support them in listening to their questions, support them in, allowing them to ask questions, having a safe space to ask questions, answer questions honestly. And if you don't know an answer, it's okay to say you don't know an answer to a question they might have. You can say, I'll come, good question. I appreciate you asking that. But let me get back to you on that. I did know of one mom who I remember she saying that her child asked her a question and she had no idea how to answer it. And she happened to be, I think, cooking at the time. And she said, she told her child, she said, just let me finish what I'm cooking in the kitchen. Let me take care of preparing dinner and let's have dinner. And I'll get back to you after dinner when things are quiet and we can have a conversation. And she said, I said that because I needed time to process it myself and think about it and think about, how I wanted to present the information, to my child. And respond in a positive way about sexuality, because once again, sexuality it's about ourself, it's a self-esteem, it's about who we are, what we believe, and we want to create those positive images and positive and self-esteem. I am going to be going over some slides, just basic about human sexual development, because we all are humans, disability or not, and regardless of that, we go through our life, we go through our sexual development. And so first of all, we have in human sexual development, we have the development of our biological sex, right? When we are, in the womb and that's being developed. And once a baby is born, there's the gender assignment is given to our children. And then as a result of that, we have our development of our gender identity and our role within society according to our gender. It's the development of the values and our attitudes towards sexuality within our culture, within our family, that takes place. There is the physical and the emotional changes of puberty. And that's usually when a lot of parents start to ask about, how do I get more information about, sexuality, and talking to my child about sexuality, because so many changes are going on at that time. And disability plays no role in that whatsoever. That's just human sexual development. So there's the development of our sexual orientation, our affectional attraction to people around us, our romantic attraction, and erotic attraction as well. There's the development of sexual behavior and development of sexual identity. And all of those things are certainly influenced by, within our family, within our culture, with social media, just so much coming at us daily in all aspects of our lives. In our human sexual development, there's the development of sexual knowledge and the development of our sexual skills. So for young children, because as I said, we are sexual beings right from the moment we are born. Our relationships, our understanding of our self, of our body, our relationships with the people where we work, where we live, where we play. And the interests and concerns and behaviors of young children are, their body parts, the functions of their body parts. They're very curious about their body, and they start to learn about the functions of their body as well. They will touch their genitals as exploration, as they're discovering who they are. Their sex play in the sense of, what is their kind of role within their pretend play, their role within, kind of within society. What are their gender roles? Playing house, taking on the roles that they see within their family. Starting to question about reproduction. Where did I come from? And certainly at a very young age, it's a very simple question. It's a simple response that's given to them. They're starting to observe much more, right? And identify with and to kind of play with their play roles as male and female. They're certainly developing at a very young age their body image, and their need for privacy increases at a young age, at a preschool age. Typically, developing children will start to develop that sense of a sense of modesty, the need for privacy, and I think that's something that many of us have perhaps experienced. There's a long learning curve on that for many of our loved ones as well. But once again, it starts at a very young age. As far as body parts and their functions go, their body parts, it's so important right at the tender age to teach our children what are the anatomically correct names for all their body parts. We teach that, we have all the songs, head, shoulder, knees, and toes, but we don't kind of talk about anything in the middle. And when we do talk about anything in the middle of our body, we kind of give them silly names. But it is really important to name the actual, have children learn right from the get-go what are the actual names of all of their body parts, be it a penis, a vulva, a vagina, testicles, to let them know what the actual names are. Because the more you use the anatomically correct names, the more you are normalizing them, and that just becomes part of their vocabulary. They'll hear slang words for them, but they'll know what the real words are, and the real vocabulary is for them. And as they grow, God forbid, if anything were to happen, if they have the vocabulary to explain with the true words for all of their body parts, if something happened, they are more believable. They are more educated, they are more believable. If something hurts, they can say exactly, they are more likely to be able to identify using words exactly, what is their body part that is hurting, or that they have a question about. So right from a very young age, very, very important. For adolescents, concerns for the interests, concerns, and behaviors of adolescents are certainly all of the physical changes that take place during puberty. hygiene, their personal care, their skin care, their oral hygiene, oral health, body odor, that have to be addressed now, right? In a totally different in a manner. Friendships, the friendships that they're developing, and there's all different types of friendships and relationships, the relationships that they have with their immediate family, if they have an interest in somebody, the relationships that they have with extended family, relationships that they have with their neighbors, with schoolmates, the relationships that they have with people out in their community, be it the people that they might see every day, be it in the pizzeria or in the supermarket or in the library, and the community helpers out there, the doctors, we've got the policemen, the firemen that are going to be around them. What are their relationships? And with maneuvering themselves within all of that as well. Questions are going to come up about perhaps reproduction, pregnancy, birth, pregnancy options, sexual expression, contraception and sexually transmitted infections, sexual feelings, and masturbation, which is, that's certainly a huge concern as well. That's time and place. That's a private behavior. It's a normal behavior for humans, but there's time and place. It's a private behavior, and helping our children, our loved ones, understand what are public places and what are private places. So that's always very, very important to do, to work through. Interests, concerns, and behaviors for adolescents certainly continues with sexual orientation, gender identity, body image, establishing and maintaining intimate relationships, ways of expressing affection, how to communicate with their partner, deciding about having sex, giving and receiving pleasure, and breaking up. Our children, they will certainly, many will develop interests in, romantic interest in someone else. Relationships come, in all shapes and sizes. And how do we help our children, support our children through those relationships, to have healthy relationships, to understand the boundaries of relationships, to understand how to, finding common interests with people that they want to be around, and also having to work through breakups. What if our children are interested in someone, but that person is not interested in our children, in our child? How do we help them work through that? How do we support them? That's, once again, that's life that we all work through, and our relationships that we have in our lives are, it's always an ongoing conversation. I think if we were even to think about ourselves, right, it's constantly, we are talking with our friends about our relationships that we do have in our lives, and how we're feeling about them. So, and just as well, it's important to support our children in that. Interests, concerns, and behaviors for adults are pregnancy and birth, parenting, contraception, sexually transmitted infections, masturbation, sexual orientation, and gender identity. So once again, these are just kind of themes. These are sexual development, human sexual development that carries through, for people, regardless of your a disability or not. And I think it's really important to understand what is human sexual development, so we can understand better understand the challenges that we face, for us to have these conversations and to provide the education to our children that we're all looking for help to do. once again, for interests, concerns, and behaviors for adults, establishing and maintaining intimate relationships, separation and divorce, body image, menopause, and changes in sexual functioning. And I've known, certainly known many adults who have, they're married, some their relationship lasts, and others they have to address with, separation and divorce. And it's very, very hard. A lot of support is needed, and to be there for our loved ones. So what I'm also going to go through, the next thing to go through here is how is the experience of a person with a disability, as far as their development, their human sexual development goes, how is it the same as someone without a disability? And then what are the differences in the experiences someone with a developmental disability would have, as opposed to someone without a disability? And that kind of starts to get, I think, into the meat of a lot of what we have questions about. What is same for if disability or with the disability or without a disability is the assigned gender. When our children are born, we look at the genitalia, they're assigned a gender. The gender roles are reinforced within our society, within our culture. The biological changes are happening to our bodies. Disability or no disability, they hit puberty at the same time, right? They start to grow facial hair. They, could start to have their menstruating as well. And our children need, disability or no disability, they need the same information regarding how their body is changing as they grow based upon their biological age, but presented to them in a way that they can understand for their developmental age. And I think that's that is often the biggest challenge, is really to work with the people around our loved one, the people who, support our loved one, to really, understand what are the learning styles that our loved one has. There are usually many, many different learning styles that we kind of have to, work together to help our loved one understand the information that we want to give them. The information needs to be concrete, right? In small, typically in small bits, for them to be able to process it, and then repetitively over and over again. I always like to say it's regarding our sexuality. It's 1,000 one-minute conversations rather than one conversation that's an hour or 2 hours, or the big conversation, or one class on sexuality education that lasts 10 weeks and it's over with. But it's constant. It's day in and day out in little tidbits, and finding teachable moments. Disability or no disability, individuals have sexual feelings, and they have needs, and everyone has dreams, right? About having, just like anyone else might, having a disability or no disability, there are their dreams. They often, they want to have relationships in their lives. And once again, relationships come in all shapes and sizes, but understanding those relationships. And many people, they want to have babies, they want to have a family. And what does family mean, right? It's so important. So to really, to understand what is the same, regardless if there's disability or no disability. And then what is different for those individuals that do have intellectual and developmental disability? The difference is their experiences growing up is once again often the lack of basic sexuality information and skills. They're often our loved ones are often thought of as either as asexual, as oversexed, or they're taken out of classes, opportunities to have that education given to them, or perhaps it's not presented in a way that that they can understand, or they have enough repetition. Oftentimes our children are considered eternal children. Many of the behaviors are accepted or forgiven, or we certainly protect our children because we know the vulnerability that they have. But once again, it's how to, and as our children grow, how to encourage them and model and support them in behaviors that are according to their age. Many people will say, for example, hugging, that's certainly people often can be very affectionate. Some people like to be hugged, some people don't. But if someone loves to hug a lot, like when do you help them understand, when do you hug everyone? Who do you hug and who don't you hug? And maybe if you want to greet someone, maybe it's a handshake or maybe it's a high five. Often people will say, my young adults loves to touch hair. They love the feeling of touching hair, and they'll be going up and they'll be touching someone's hair without asking their permission, right? And you're becoming into the personal space of another person. You're crossing the boundaries. And do we start to help them understand the limits of, when you can touch someone's hair and when perhaps it's not appropriate to touch them, or you touch their hair, or you need to ask. But, starting to set those boundaries according to their age as well. The nature of the disability. Oftentimes, many of our children don't pick up on social cues. It's so difficult for them to read the nuances of language, the nuances of spoken language, right? The nuances of body language as well is very, very difficult for them. Understanding the emotions of other people can be a very big challenge for many of our loved ones. Our children often need additional topics to be taught to them that are typically our neurotypical children they just seem to develop just from their exposure with their friends. Additional topics, such as more in-depth, more intensive education with, their personal hygiene, with asking questions, with having, reciprocal interactions, with, how to find a common interest with someone else, with dating, with using the phone, with texting. How many times do I text someone? Do I text them 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, even if they're not answering back and I continue to text them? Or do I need to, set the boundaries for my child? You can text, twice, for example, or 3 times. And then if you don't get a response, it's time to, to pause. And as I said before, trouble identifying emotions, very, very difficult for many of our for many of our children. Understanding how for our children to understand how others feel about about their behavior, and it can be very, very it can be very difficult. Oftentimes our children lack the friendships. Once they leave school, they have their friends in school, but once they leave school, where are their friendships, right? They're not afterwards kind of joining up with some friends and going to the park or going to the gym, or, going to, walking around the mall, going to the park. That often doesn't happen. The sleepovers, those social opportunities for informal learning, that they miss out on. And they also, that informal learning is perhaps doesn't really go with their learning style as well. They need a much more structured learning and a teaching system. And loneliness. So many people have kind of watching and talking with others, they have expressed the loneliness. And I think that all of us, particularly during COVID, when we were isolated, really deeply felt that that feeling of loneliness, and how it really affected our mental health, our mental well-being. So loneliness is a big one. Often lacking privacy to explore their sexuality. Our kids often don't have a lot of privacy to themselves. They need certainly different levels of support. But there's usually someone always around for oversight, to ensure that their safety, and they really don't have that opportunity to explore their sexuality. Or if they do have that they do have that special person, right? Are they given time as a young adult to be alone with that person? Another difference is that many parents will let go of their dreams for their child related to sexuality, or think of them as not sexual, perhaps because they haven't expressed it or shown it. And then there's the worry about the higher rate of abuse, which is, I think that's front and center for all of us. I do see that someone raised a hand. Audrey, I don't know if yeah. So that's the security for our children is always front and in center, and to ensure to the very best that we can, that abuse does not occur.
I let the person who raised their hand speak. So of the person who raised their hand, if you'd like to speak, you may go ahead and ask your question. Okay, I don't think he is asking the question. So let's
Okay.
just move on.
We can hold on to that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
How we teach topics is different. Once again, all of our children have an individualized learning style, understanding their learning style, and how do we present information that we want to give them in a way that they can understand. It usually we often need to use a lot of modalities, certainly repetition, but through role playing, through social stories, through visuals, through through conversations, if they're auditory learners. And so really finding what is their learning style. And if you're finding, sometimes we have to change our teaching style to accommodate their learning style. I always believe that everyone is a learner, and it's upon it is upon us as educators to find out what their learning style is. They might, if we feel they're not learning, it might very well be that we're not presenting the information to them in a way that that they are able to best understand. And so sometimes we've got to realize that and adapt that, and try to figure out another way that we could present the information. And repetition, always a big one. And once again, our children often have a wide range of abilities and limitations. There's so many things that they do so well and they excel at, and then what are the things that they struggle with, and what do they need more support with?
I'm going to ask the question. The participant put it in the Q&A. So the question is, My nonverbal son is having issues where he is sexually frustrated. He is trying to put his mother's hand on his penis. I heard that there were sexual therapists who can help him with these issues, even surrogates. Do you have anyone you can refer me to?
I don't have that information right now, but certainly that's something that we can, explore and see if we can find that info, provide that a resource for you. But yes.
Are there specialists that help individuals with disabilities with that kind of an issue? I mean, in your experience, have you encountered that?
I do know that there are, I do know of individuals who've gone with, with therapists to that really have a, concentration in sexuality development, and they,
Mhm.
they will work along with them to support them, to help them. And with sexual surrogates, I believe as well. I don't know of any, but, mhm.
Well, we can certainly help to that parent. We'll help you find a resource.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. And some tips that I wanted to share as far as how to begin the conversation, because it's a lifelong conversation. But with our children is, first of all, it's never too young, from a very young age, to be talking about their right, what are your body parts, the anatomically correct name of your body parts, understanding public and private is very important. And but you might need to have to initiate the conversation. Oftentimes our loved ones struggle with that communication piece, right? And how to initiate a question. They don't have the vocabulary, or it's a challenge to articulate questions. So we might need to initiate it and start providing the information to our children little by little, and using inclusive language. It's okay to feel embarrassed, not to know the answer, or answer the question later. You can always come back to it. And it's important to acknowledge our children, our loved ones, that they do have a question, that it's okay to ask questions. And we will get back with an answer later. To use a private tone in a private place. If you're talking about a conversation that's not a public conversation, help them understand that this is a private, right, conversation in a quiet place within your home, that is a private place for the family, right? Talking in a lower tone to rather than loudly in the volume, right? In a private tone. But public and private are extremely important. Things are time and place. And so, and on helping them to understand public and private can be, oftentimes they'll use, visuals, pictures of what are public places, what are private places. Out in a park, is this a public place? Within a bedroom is a private place. A house, there are rooms, although a house can be someone's house is, my house, for example, is a private place for my family. There are rooms within my house that are public because people are coming and going. A bathroom in your house might be it's a private place, but a bathroom out in a store, right, is really, even though you're behind closed doors, it is a public place, in many senses. And if you're in a bathroom in someone else's house, it's a private place within their house, but it's also, within someone else's house. So there's so many gray areas that are really difficult for our children, which is why they need lots of practice. But public and private, you can, even if you're using visuals, if you're using, you are out in a park and you say, this is a public place, right? And you're in it when you're in a bathroom, in a store, in a mall, whatever, this is it's a public bathroom, right? A bathroom in a school is a public bathroom. Even though you do have privacy within the stall, it's still a public bathroom. So there's so many nuances and so many things to be practicing with that. And so visuals are really important. And when you're in the actual place and having those conversations and finding out how to just work them in little bits of at a time. As I had said before, give age appropriate information, give information to your children that is appropriate for their chronological age, based upon presented in a way that they can understand for their developmental age. Using models, visuals, TV, soap operas, role plays, scenarios, I'll say social stories, are big ones. And especially, I would say, be aware of what are our children watching on TV? What are they seeing at the movies? Sit down with them and while they're watching TV, or after you go to a movie with them, let's say, talk to them about what did they see in the movie? What is entertainment versus what's reality? Simple questions in a way that they could understand, and so that it's teachable moments, finding those opportunities, day in and day out, that you can present information, reinforce relationships, behaviors within their day-to-day lives. I've seen for example, and this can be so difficult for our children. You might see on TV, on a teenage show, right there, someone will come up to somebody else and give them a slap right on the bottom, and you've got kind of the laugh track going in the back. And it's so easy for many of our kids that love movies, they love TVs, and they often imitate what they see. If they were, a conversation is, yes, I saw that happen on TV, on that TV show, but that was entertainment. Do we do that in real life? Do I go up to somebody in real life and do I give them a slap right on their rear end? It could, that can bring a lot of issues and a lot of problems. So it's really important to, find those little pieces that we can talk to our kids, the teachable moments, the little conversations of 1 or 2 minutes here and there. And if you can get feedback from your children, give them the opportunity to give the feedback. We as parents are good at reading our kids, and we get a sense of how they are understanding and processing the information. Try to give a consistent message. Our children need consistency in the messages they receive, and to be concrete in the messages that we give them. They need that. They're not abstract, often not abstract thinkers. They're concrete thinkers. What does it feel like when, if someone has that special person that they're interested in, they feel butterflies in their stomach, but what does that mean? What does it mean when there's someone special that you have? What are the feelings that you have? To give them really concrete feelings. The next one is often difficult. Try not to react. I think through life, we start to learn with our children, we were always kind of thinking several steps ahead, and we try to be as proactive as we can, but to listen and try not to react in a way that would make our children feel like they can't come to us and ask us questions, because we want them to be able to do that. Practice. There's many ways that you can practice whatever skill it is that you want to teach them. Practice it during the dinner table, practice it when you're sitting out in the backyard, practice it when you're going for a walk, but find opportunities to practice things, and to, once again, it's going through it and practicing it that helps them develop that that memory, that to learn that skill. And use teachable moments. I can't overemphasize that. There's always little tiny teachable moments through the whole day that we can use to teach our children about their sexuality, their relationships with others, how they feel about themselves. It's a very, there's just so many topics to talk about. And I also wanted to share that an important thing is that when we talk to our kids, also we talk about talking about the different people that are in their lives, where they live, they work, and they play. What are the types of touch that you have with the different people within your lives, be it a hug, be it a kiss, be it a handshake, be it a high five, be it just a wave, be it a thumbs up. Because all of those, there's different ways that we interact with different people in our, that are in our lives. And also to, when we talk about, we often talk about, stranger danger to our children, because they are so vulnerable that we want to protect them. But it's really important to not just think about stranger danger, but to think about strange behavior. What is acceptable touch? What is not? What's safe touch? What is unsafe touch? Because research has shown that abuse often happens from with people that the person who's being abused knows. So what is strange behavior is really important to to let our children know. So lots of tips, lots of things, and I'm sure there's more things. I would also encourage, as far as providing our children with supported decision making, to give them the opportunity to have decisions in what they want to do, because that supported decision making increases their self-advocacy, and by increasing your self-advocacy as well, you're increasing their ability to express themselves, and to also in their safety is very important. So supported decision making, and we never, I've been guilty of that as well, is that I feel that I can make the best decisions for my children, but to really to listen to them, and what do they want, what would they like to do, and give them the opportunity and to experience things that they want. Certainly want to make sure that they are always safe, but that they have a say in that as well. And that also comes back to with supported decision making, to for our children to understand, yes, and know that when that they do have that opportunity, that they do have that autonomy to say yes or to say no, and for us to also respect that they know and certainly always that their safety is front and center. But to make those decisions and that they know, so that if they say no to someone, that understand that that other person too needs to understand that they say no and respect it. Likewise, when someone says no to them, that it needs to be respected. And I would, along those lines, I would say it's always important to never to not to have our children give affection to someone when they don't want to. Be it a close family member, be it an aunt, be it an uncle, be it whoever it might be. If we often encourage our children, we'll say, give grandma, give grandpa, give aunt, uncle, or whatever, a hug or a kiss, and if they don't want to, don't make them. Respect that and let them know it's okay. Maybe next time you'll want to give a hug, because they also have to understand that sense of body autonomy as well, that they have control over their body, and that's certainly extremely important for their for their safety, and for their autonomy, and for their self-advocacy. And I think along that lines as well, we often, many of our children, right, are taught, they do have learned compliance. Our kids are, they're well behaved, they do as they are told, which is, I always love it when my children are well behaved. But, from a safety aspect, they don't always want that. We don't, they could be told to do something that could put them in a situation that is not safe. And so they, it's very important for that as well. To let them have that supported decision making is very important. So as far as teachable moments go, once again, always reassure, your loved one, the individual that you're with, that it's good to ask questions and that you will listen to them. That, and really oftentimes we have to work, but when a person is asking a question, what are they thinking, or what are they really asking? We have to decide what message we want to give back to our, to our loved one, to the person that we're supporting, and also to answer questions simply using medical terminology when it refers to their body parts, and encourage, the person that we're listening to, that we're supporting, to give us feedback in the way that they, in their communication style, to see, how much are they truly understanding? Do I have to present this information in a new way? And certainly, once again, repetition is always the key, and practicing it, perhaps with social stories, with role playing, very important, carrying it over a variety of modalities. Answering questions. So, oftentimes our kids will come to us and they perhaps might say, what is a boner? They've heard it they've heard it at school, they've heard it on the playground, they've heard it somewhere. And then we kind of go, oh, how do I answer this question? So these are just a few strategies to answer factual questions that can be very helpful. So what is a boner? You could a response would be a boner, it's a slang, right? It's a slang word for erection, and erection is when a man's penis becomes hard. Often people think that there's a bone in it, but there's not. Blood is going into the penis, making it erect and making it hard. That's a private behavior, and it often feels good. And so basically using that strategy is what's called the Scarborough method. So you can often include in your answer kind of three aspects: the physical aspect, what is a boner, right? It's a slang word for an erection, etc. Social aspect of it, is it public, is it private? Responsibility, are there laws included in that? And then the emotional, the feelings connected with it. But kind of three areas that you might want to hit upon, not necessarily for every question. In fact, you'll question, would you necessarily use all three? But it's kind of broken down into three like that. I think what is important is to include in your answer, the social aspect. Is it something that's private? Is it something that's is it something public? Is it something private? And the responsibility of it as well. So another question was, what is a condom? The physical aspect would be, it's a rubber sock that covers a penis. The social answer to that piece of the question would be, using a condom is private. It protects you and your partner. And the emotional aspect of that question, the response to that question would be, many people feel good when they use them because they're being responsible and protecting themselves and their partner. So once again, you kind of break it down into think of those three those three components to answer the question. It's also it's very helpful, but the social piece is really important to to include. These are you're going to be getting our slide presentation where, we're not breaking out into breakout rooms or tables, but if you were to think, once again, if you were to take those, those three aspects, what is a clitoris? What does having your period mean? What is sex? But if breaking them down into those three areas is helpful. And, once again, how are babies made? It's the physical is when, a man and a woman are together in bed, and they're naked, and the man puts his penis is inserted into the woman's vagina, and the sperm from the male, when it connects with the egg from the woman, a baby is made. But once again, how babies are made is a question that depends upon, the age of the age of the child. And the social aspect is, when you have a baby, you have a family, and families really make people, they make people feel good, and there's a sense of belonging, and families are really beautiful. Responding to behaviors, once again, we see our lives are made of behaviors, and how we respond to them and teach our children is obviously extremely important in their education. But when you do see a behavior, you decide if it is better to ignore the situation in the moment, and if ignoring the situation is appropriate, there's not safety issues concerned. But you could, then continue with the following steps. If ignoring the situation is inappropriate, and you continue with the following steps. Name the behavior to the person, right, as you see or hear it, and praise it if it is appropriate, but also understanding what's the meaning behind the behavior. And decide what message what is the message that you want to give. If you want to, if you want to give a positive message, or if there's a safety message, if there's safety concerns to give that message as well. Give messages by responding simply, by responding concretely, and if possible, without a reaction, because we don't want to we want to keep that communication open. Oftentimes, right, if we are very reactive, then the person that we are talking with will shut down. And we want to keep that communication in that safe area, a safe place to talk about behaviors and teach about behaviors, open, and encourage the person that you are supporting to give them feedback. If it's a behavior that perhaps you want to work on shaping, that's something that you don't have to address the behavior immediately. Perhaps let it, don't bring it up in the moment, but certainly address it afterwards, alone with that person, and discuss it and in a way that they can understand, and perhaps model then what is the behavior that you would like them to work on, and then practice it through all different times, different settings. These, just due to time, I'm not going to go over all of this, but once again, with David Hinsberg, these are when you're looking at the why behind a behavior, because there's always a why. We're looking, is it something in the structure, something in the environment? Is it being modeled by someone? Is this, behaviors that they're seeing in a movie, let's say, or on TV or social media, and they are repeating it. Partner selection, once again, inappropriate courtships, but all of these areas, just for time, you will have these in your PowerPoint. I'm not going to go into depth about them, but just briefly, sexual knowledge, are we seeing a behavior because they don't have the education in that specific area, and that's something that then we have to work on. Is it behavior that they have seen, been exposed to, been modeled to them, and so they are repeating it? Perpetual arousal, when we have to, is it something because, that they didn't complete? Is it a medical reason? Is it for medication? Many aspects of that could be affecting behavior as well. And then 9 again is medications, and then 10, a moral vacuum. Is it because no one has told them that something isn't okay, and they haven't they haven't learned that, and so that's something to work on. Here are some examples. I won't go over them, but when you have the PowerPoint, you can certainly scenarios to think about, and how you would handle them, how you would respond to them. And at the end, I think it's important for everyone to reflect on, what are 3 positive messages that you would like to give your children about sexuality? And so it's important to reflect on that. And as you kind of move forward and start the conversation, it's important to keep that in mind as well. I'm going to stop sharing for 1 minute, and what I would like to I'm going to bring up here is this is going to be the these are going to be handouts that we will have. And what I would like to go through, this is human sexual development, which is what we went over, sexual interests and concerns from birth, through the lifespan. But what I really like to bring up is the next page, that's a handout that is in your packet, which are topics to teach for sexuality education. And as you can kind of see here, if you were to take a yardstick, these are there are 4 kind of general areas. Certainly it's not exhaustive, but it's a pretty, comprehensive topics to teach. If you were to take a yardstick for sexuality education, 75% of it our social skills, and 25% of it is, physical health and emerging sexuality. So much of what is in the the realm of sexuality education, we as parents, are doing. We are doing, and we're doing it day in and we're doing it day out. And I think that's really important for everyone to know. And in the for social skills, understanding the difference in the relationships where we live, where we work, where we play, between families, friends, acquaintances, and strangers, appropriate behavior and touch, with those people in our lives, and also within, ourself as we as individuals and our children are exploring and understanding their body, and as they are having those sexual feelings and trying to understanding and reacting to how their body is feeling, what's public, what's private, modesty and nudity. I know once of, what someone once shared with me, that they had gone to the beach, they're in their bathing suit, their son was kind of wearing like big, Bermuda shorts, right? That really looked like shorts. You throw a t-shirt on, they look like shorts. And after the beach, they were, wanted to stop in the supermarket. And so the mom, she put on her, a dress, whatever, on top of her, off top of her bathing suit, her shoes, sandals to go into the supermarket. And, her son had his Bermuda shorts on, and then he threw on a t-shirt, and he was like, no, mom, I can't go into the supermarket because I have my bathing suit on. The bathing suit I only wear that at the beach. I don't wear that out in other places. It's almost as if like I don't have something, I'm not dressed. And, it's easy to say, nah, they just look like shorts, let's do that. But, this is a person who's just a real, concrete thinker, and just has a really hard time transitioning back and forth between understanding the nuances that he could kind of wear those Bermuda shorts, bathing suit with his t-shirt and sandals into a store. And, said, nope, we'll go home and we'll change. But having that understanding, that was really, difficult, for him. Perhaps for someone else might have said, you throw on a t-shirt, let's go into the store. But had a very, this young man had a very, he did have a clear sense of kind of where you could and where you couldn't. Appropriate dress, the dresses for how we dress for different occasions, how we dress for the weather, right? Our personal hygiene, phone etiquette, as I had said earlier, when how long do you talk to someone on the phone? What if someone wants to end a conversation? What if accepting no, if you call someone and they're working and they answer the phone and they say, I can't talk now. And you say, okay, I'll talk to you later. How many times do you text someone without getting an answer? When do you stop? Dining skills, our friendship skills, making and keeping friends, initiating conversations, having a back and forth conversation, even if it's once or twice, listening to someone else, right? Understanding another person's emotions, both their verbal and their nonverbal, finding similarities, finding common interests, being around people that do have common interests, and seeking those people out. Relationship skills, asking someone out on a date if you're interested in them, dealing with rejection. You're interested in someone else, but they're not interested in you. And how do we support someone through that? Giving and receiving compliments, compromising, lifelong skill, right? Resisting persuasion, decision-making, setting limits, communication skills, sexual behavior, what's public, what's private, consent, permission, begins at a very young age. Can I borrow your hat? Can I wear your hat today? If they say yes, thank you. If they say no, accepting that no. begins very, very simple to, as you're working up, can I give you a hug? No, I really don't want a hug now. Oh, and accepting that, right? Rather than saying, come on, I want to let me give you a hug, let me give you a hug. But really respecting that body autonomy. Birth control, sexually transmitted infections, decisions about family, becoming a parent. And then finally, the other part, physical health and emerging sexuality, male and female, body parts and functions, puberty changes, going, sexual feelings, masturbation, sexual orientation, self-esteem, and reproduction. So, this is a super handy handout to have as far as, advocating for what what is included in comprehensive sexuality education, and also to know that as parents, we're already doing a lot. We're doing a lot, and to really commend, I just want to commend everyone for that as well. So I'm going to stop sharing that.
That was great. Thank you so much. We do have a few questions that came in advance, and then if anyone else has questions, you can just put them in the Q&A or raise your hand, and we're happy to take your questions. One person asked, what are some good articles and books that I can read to figure out what strategy I'm going to take with my son in navigating his sexuality in a safe and respectful way? And I think you might have some resources in one of the handouts. Okay, great.
Yes, I do. We have in the handout packet as well with all, there is a pages on resources here.
Okay, great.
And there's, I would always say you can always go to Elevatus training to our website. We have a lot of free resources on there that are really helpful. You can also get on their email list, and they're always sending out, they're sending out information on perhaps upcoming, webinars that might be of interest to you, presentations, as well as, they'll send out articles, information, things that are, really kind of tips as well. So that would be really handy. And there are, there's on on the page in the handouts, there are a lot of resources there as well. There's one, Amaze, I think it's amaze.com. They have, they're great. They have really short videos, and videos seem to be, they're loved by our kids. They're on YouTube, and they have a variety of real short animated videos on a variety of topics, which are really nice. There's another one, Sex Positive Families. They have a lot of information and resources as well. So there's a lot out there, and that is on our page. Yep.
I have a resource that I'll share as well, that my son is being used with my son, who's an almost 20-year-old who had a hemispherectomy and has an autism diagnosis and other things. And it's a video training where someone walks him through, and then they watch the video, and then there's like a Q&A, and it's all about what you're talking about boundaries, relationships, saying no, all of that. I think what you talked about like, we might think, well, it's okay to wear the Bermuda shorts and, the whatever, but for rule followers, it's like the rule, we have to kind of stay with the rule all the time.
You got to stay with the rule.
Grandma wants to give you a kiss and you don't want to kiss, but you have to take the kiss. That can extend into other situations. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's really.
Questions came up. One question was, I don't know where to start in a way that supports a young boy going through puberty who has intellectual disabilities, autism, and epilepsy. And another parent asked, when is a good time to talk about this? And when you and I met beforehand, we noted that there are people on this call from ages 6 to 21. My son is almost 20, and I feel like I'm just starting to get a handle on this. So I feel like I'm a little late to the game, but
never late.
So where do we start? Like, so for the parent who hasn't started thinking about this or talking about this yet, where do we start? What do you recommend?
Once again, I would kind of, that handout that I just pulled up that kind of breaks things down, you also use that as a guide, but I think that there, for each of us, for each family, there's I would say public and private is the big one. That's
Mhm.
a huge one right from the very beginning, because we're talking a lot, a lot of questions, certainly about puberty and masturbation. That's a
Mhm.
big one, right? And but public and private is a real big one. Start using the anatomically correct name for body parts, right?
Mhm.
Right off the bat. And
Yeah.
to get them to use them, and they'll giggle through it, right? But give them, nope, that's what the name is. Here's other slang words,
Mhm.
for that they might have heard. But, I would I'd really start with that, because public and private, and, and just that supported decision making, giving them the opportunity to say yes or to say no, and for us to respect that as well,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
in tiny little steps.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I'm interested in learning how to help my understand boundaries in sexual relationships. I fear he doesn't understand how easily pregnancy and STDs can happen since he has an intellectual disability. Do you have any thoughts about that?
um yeah, it's a hard one to understand, right? And I think that there is, I would suggest as well for parents to do some research, and even see if you can, if you know of someone, to find someone who, or an organization that does consent assessments,
Yeah.
because not and look at it as it's an educational tool, and there's really a specific way that a trained person can does to do a consent assessment, and it's a tool to help us understand what an individual understands or doesn't understand, and what we have to work on to support them in getting that a better education.
Mhm.
Once again, it's not going to be, and then finding the people around you who can support you. And I think the other tip is that we as parents are not in this alone. We need to find people around us. It takes a village.
Yeah.
It takes a circle of support and with a consistent message being given, right, to the person who's in the center for the information that we
Mhm.
want them to learn. And we often feel like we've got to, educate them on everything at once, but we don't. You start with little bits, right,
Yeah.
and build upon it. But
Mhm.
that might be a really if you can find someone. Sometimes they're hard to find, but if you a consent assessment, really to understand, what does my loved one understand, and what don't they understand, and what do we have to work on in their education.
Yeah, I think one thing that I have a 19-year-old who had a hysterectomy, so I'm relating to this mom because my son's about to turn 20 as well, and it's very.
Nope, I lost you. I lost volume. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
That's probably me.
There you go.
I think I pushed mute.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everyone. Did you hear anything that I was saying? No.
No,
Okay.
I
I was
don't.
saying that so when my son was younger, very young, like maybe age 3, someone said to me that our kids don't generalize skills well. So you don't teach them a skill in one context and expect
Nope.
them to be able to apply it in another context. They have to have repeated practice in multiple different situations. And I
Yes.
sort of joked about the fact that I'm just starting. So in our family, we have, because my son, he was diagnosed early with a nonverbal learning disorder, which is, can fall under autism. just not getting nonverbal cues at all. Like he could verbally, he was fine, but anything nonverbal. So we had swearing dinners, for example, where we would just practice swearing at dinner to the point where he would go over the line, because we didn't want him to go over the line at school when the kids are swearing around and saying that's whatever is different than saying you're whatever. So we would practice, and then he would know, okay, that I went over the line, and we would talk about it and whatnot. We did a lot of role playing around bullying, just because he had a bullying experience. So we had a month there where we were all role playing bullying at dinner. So I think some of this is for the parent who's asking about understanding about pregnancy and STDs. I think it's like introducing the conversation early and often, over and over and over again, until you feel like they really get it. And really hammering it into the like ad nauseum. So my younger son is sort of like got to the point where he's like, can we stop talking about sex? Because we did have a lot of, practice talk at dinner. And then there are trainings, and I'm going to share a couple resources with you all. There is a consent training that I'm aware of that's local sex educator does a consent training, does it with agencies, does it with families, does it with individuals, any level. But I think sometimes it's not about just learning about consent. It's learning about the outcomes of your actions. And that can be a lot harder even than the consent piece.
Right. And so that's all, it's all wrapped in within that assessment. There's many facets, but you absolutely, it's, that's included in there, but it's, as you said, it is very difficult. Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of like the way, so I had a daughter who, typical child, and when she was 3, she was obsessed with masturbation, just obsessed. And she masturbated anywhere, everywhere, on anything, on anyone. And so they had worked with a therapist on how exactly what you talked about, public and private, where you do things and when you can and all of that. And she was 3. And I think, our kids, even though they're developmentally 18, 20, 25, whatever, developmentally, they might be much, much younger. And so you're going to use the developmental strategies as you would for a young child, or if they're nonverbal, similarly, like what are the strategies you're going to use? And you're going to have to use maybe a communication board or a choice board or an AC device to communicate the choice. Like right now, I want to go in my room and masturbate. They have to have a button for that, right? Because it has to be allowed. So how do we do that? So I think it's going to require staffing with people who are open to kind of melding those two worlds, like the communication piece with the kind of sexual choice piece, and where is it appropriate and all of that.
Absolutely.
And having like a team approach, like you mentioned, that it takes a village, right?
It takes a village. And I know one mom one time had asked me, she said she was concerned about that very issue, masturbation. She said, I don't know what to do. My son will masturbate in the living room in the house underneath a blanket. And so, she's like, I just don't know what to do. And I said, it's like, well, he has the understanding that it's private. Right. But now we have the living room in your home is actually a public place per se, because you've got family members coming in and out. So he has the understanding, you've been successful in that. Now we just need to understand that the bedroom is the private place. Right. So it goes back public and private, time and place for so many of our behaviors, what's social. Right. And but it's okay. It's normal. Let's just find its time and place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Last question that came in was, one was asking about psychological changes after surgery. I don't think we're equipped to answer that question. Hopefully you're working very closely with a neuropsychologist or a developmental pediatrician to help you understand these pieces through your pediatric epilepsy center. If they don't have someone, ask them to help you find someone, because that's a really important piece. There's a question about kind of handling promiscuous behavior and attitudes wanting independence despite their medical condition. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of research on any of this after epilepsy surgery. That's what we're trying to do with our organization, is move the needle forward in understanding that. But you could look to the literature for traumatic brain injury, for TBI. I did a quick search yesterday, and there are some links to promiscuous behavior and addictive behavior after TBIs or PTSD. A lot of our kids also suffer from traumatic trauma from medical trauma. And again, working with a skilled therapist in that particular arena to help you understand how to support your young adult or your teen or child in this. And then wanting independence despite the medical condition. I think every child wants independence, really starting from a pretty young age at different levels of independence. And that can be really hard. So again, I would just say work with a skilled therapist, bring in experts as much as possible, but that can also communicate to your child. So the expert in sexuality might need to learn how to use an AAC device to communicate with your child to help have that conversation, or how to do plain language summaries or whatever it would be in that particular case, or a behavior training. So some families have addressed this through behavior therapy. A lot of our kids qualify for even ABA training, but if you're really picking the targeted behavior, is what the behavior we're trying to train is learning where is it appropriate to masturbate and where is it not, or whose hand is allowed to be on the penis and whose hand isn't allowed to be on the penis, whatever it is that you're trying to train in a very specific, like treating it as a targeted behavior intervention, but without shaming or blaming, because there's that natural desire to be sexual, which every human has, but in a constructive way. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's, yeah, I think you're right on target with that. Absolutely. Right on target with your response. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, I will be sending up follow-up resources to all of you. There will be a survey. You can get it now in the chat. It'll also come in the follow-up. I just wanted to thank Beth Sola so much for being here today and helping us start this conversation. We actually have another presenter in December who is going to do an hashtag #us2 presentation that's talking more about individuals with more severe developmental disabilities, and when they are in organizations, group homes, day programs, et cetera, and what we can do to protect our loved ones who are really not able to speak up for themselves or learn these things. So that will be coming up in December. Thanks again for being here today, and follow up with me via email if any of you have any questions, and we'll see you for the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.